sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. May all be happy. May all be free from diseases. May all see only goodness everywhere. May no one be subject to misery. May there be peace everywhere, abiding peace by the grace of God. Good evening, friends. The subject of my talk this evening is what is Shraddha. Shraddha is a Sanskrit word and it means respect. Not just ordinary respect. Just as when people say, I respect you here in this country, they say, I respect you, but I have to say this. No, not that kind of respect. It is respect which is almost like worshipful attitude. Worshipful attitude. There is a scripture in Hinduism, it's called Bhagavad Gita. And it is considered the essence of the Upanishads. And the Upanishads are very important. Upanishad means the proximity of which will loosen the grip of ignorance on our minds, the ignorance which doesn't allow us to know that we are divinity. So about the Gita, it is mentioned. It starts with a small chapter called Gita Dhyanam. And there we read, Sarva Upanishado Gavo Dogdha Gopalanandanaha Partho Vatsa Sudhiri Bhokta Dugdham Gita Amritam Mahat. All the Upanishads are like the cows, and the milkman or milker is Sri Krishna, who is the cowherd boy. And Arjuna is the calf. And pure-minded men are the drinkers of that milk. And so that milk is the supreme nectar of the Upanishads, so to say. And the Bhagavad Gita contains all the truths that we have in a very very succinct form that we have. So, Gita Sugita Kartavya Kimanne Shastra Vistarai. That saying is there. That is, the Bhagavad Gita should be chanted. And what is the use of studying other scriptures? Studying the Bhagavad Gita is enough. In chapter 4 of verse 39 of the Bhagavad Gita, we read, Shraddhavan labhate jnanam tatpara sanjitendriyaha jnanam labdha param shantim atirena adhigacchati. That means those who have Shraddha, that respect worshipful attitude toward their guru or toward the scriptures, they acquire the knowledge of God. And when they acquire the knowledge, they very soon they get that all-abiding peace which one can have through the knowledge of divinity. And the word Shraddha is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, as I have already chanted to you. That means those who have Shraddha, they acquire the knowledge of divinity. That means that respect which is worshipful respect. When we are children, we are taught to respect our mothers, our father, and our teacher, etc. Because in one of the Upanishads it is mentioned, Matrideva bhava, Pitrideva bhava, Acharya deva bhava, Atithi deva bhava. Even the guest has to be treated as God. Mother, father, teacher, and the guest. That was taught in those days in the schools of ancient India. In my childhood, I was also taught that. That's why I used to look upon my parents as God, so to say. And when I became a little older, I had to go to school. And before going to school, I used to salute my mother and my father. Sometimes my father would not be there, but his shoes would be there. So I would salute his shoes and go to school, with the satisfaction that I have saluted my father also. This is what we were taught, and that has helped me all my life. And I was talking about the Upanishads, and there is one Upanishad which is called the Chandogya Upanishad. And there is a story of Jabala Satyakama in that Upanishad. So in those days, these young boys had to go to the teacher's school and stay there. It is called Guru Griha Vasha. Then he's living in the teacher's home. And the teacher would treat the students like a child and would teach everything good. So there was a lady named Jabala, and she had a son whose name was Satyakama. That is in the Chandogya Upanishad. But she did not have one husband. In those days it looks like a woman can have very close physical relationship with different men. So Satyakama was born, and who was Satyakama's father, it is difficult to say. His mother Jabala had intimate physical relationship with many men, it looks like. But Satyakama wanted to go for his education to the home of the Guru. But Then the Guru would ask Satyakama about his ancestry. So Satyakama asked his mother, "Who was my ancestor?" Then Jawaharlal said, "Well, I am not sure. Because I had intimate physical relationship with many men, and who is your father, I do not know." So anyway, still Satyakama wanted to go to the teacher's home, and knowing fully well that the teacher would ask him about his ancestry. Then his mother said, go and tell that you are the son of Jabala. So he is Jabala Satyakama. And so Satyakama went to his teacher. The teacher's name was Gautama. So Gautama accepted him as a student because he saw, when he asked Satyakama, Satyakama said that he didn't know the name of his father or his ancestry, but he knew his mother. And that truthfulness impressed Gautama very much. And he accepted Satyakama as his student. So then the first lesson that Guru Gautama gave to Satyakama was very strange. He pointed at 400 cows, milk cows. And they were sickly cows. And the teacher Gautama said to Satyakama, "Your first lesson is to take care of these cows." But Satyakama had Shraddha. The words of his Guru were like gospel truths. So he had Shraddha. He had that worshipful attitude towards his Guru. So he followed his Guru's advice. And then he took those cows to some grazing land. And then after a while, these strange things started happening to Satyakama. There was a bull in that herd of cows, and that bull started talking in human language and said to Satyakama and gave him some spiritual teachings. Then in those days they had to build a fire every day, and that is using fire as the symbol they would worship God. So Satyakama would do the same. And then one day that fire started talking to Satyakama in human language and gave him some teachings, spiritual teachings. Satyakama started practicing according to those teachings. Then another day, sometime later, a goose which was flying came down, alighted, and started talking in human language to Satyakama. And while talking, the goose gave Satyakama more spiritual teachings. And Satyakama started acting according to those spiritual teachings. Then after some time, some days, a waterfowl alighted in front of Satyakama. And started speaking in human language and gave him some more spiritual teachings. And Satyakama was respectful to all of them. They were his teachers. He had Shraddha for them. And so he started living according to those teachings. Thus, a certain period of time passed. How long, that is not mentioned there. Maybe a year or 2 or 3, and then the bull of that herd said to Satyakama, we were 400 in number, now our number has reached 1,000. So this is the time when you should go to your teacher, Gautama. So Satyakama accordingly went back to his teacher. And teacher Gautama looked at Satyakama and said to him, your beaming face is like the face of one who has come to know divinity. Brahman is called divinity. Then Gautama gave the same teachings that Satyakama had got from those creatures, or the bull, the fire, and the goose, and the waterfowl. The same teachings were given by his teacher Gautama again. So it shows that Satyakama got the teachings because he had Shraddha, worshipful attitude to the teacher. He didn't examine the teacher. The teacher, whatever the teacher taught him, he accepted that as gospel truth, so to say. So this story is considered very important. And when we were children, we used to be told this story by our parents. And that's why we used to look upon our parents as God, that is mother as God, father as God, and teacher as God, and even the guests as God. This I have done so far. My spiritual teacher, I look upon them as God, and their words I obey. I obey their words, whatever they say. And the order in which I am is the Ramakrishna Order, Ramakrishna Mission. It was founded by Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda came to the West, and because in a vision he saw his guru, Sri Ramakrishna, asking him to cross the ocean and come to the West. In the West means America. At that time, a parliament of religions was being held there, the first kind of parliament of that. Parliament of religions, representatives of different religions were invited to be present in that parliament. But so Swami Vivekananda hadn't got any such invitation because he was not that well known at that time. He was only 33 years old. And and not known as a saint. But at the time when he was in southern part of India, then he had that vision. That vision he saw, Sri Ramakrishna was walking on water in the ocean, the Bay of Bengal, so to say. And he was asking Narendra, that was his Vivekananda's pre-monastic name, to follow him to the west. But at that time Narendra, who would become Vivekananda later on, he was not sure that he should go. Then he had great respect for another divine incarnation, she is Shraddha Devi, and wrote to her, seeking her permission. And then the Sri Shraddha Devi gave him the permission to go. And after getting that permission, Vivekananda, at that time Narendranath, boarded a ship, and by that time he had acquired that name also. Perhaps at that time it was not Vivekananda. Some say that his name was Vibhidishananda or whatever, some other name. And he had a few disciples. And India had many native states at that time. And some kings became followers of Swami Vivekananda. And the king of Khetri estate gave him the money to go by boat to America. And so the boat sailed from Bombay, and on the way stopped in different places and eventually touched the continent of America. He first came to Vancouver, BC. And then from there, by train he went to Chicago. And he was accepted there as a delegate and became very famous. About him, the newspapers wrote, when after hearing his speeches, he said he is an orator by divine right. And Vivekananda then was hired by a lecture bureau, and so Vivekananda had to go to different cities in the United States and give talks and preached what is commonly known as Hinduism, but he called it Vedanta, Vedantic teachings. And all these things happened because he had great Shraddha for Sri Ramakrishna. He knew Sri Ramakrishna to be no other than God. While he was not Vivekananda, but Narendranath, he had a great desire to have Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and he knew that his guru could give him. By that time, Sri Ramakrishna had accepted him as his disciple, and by that time, so Narendranath thought that had his guru given him that experience, that would be wonderful. But Sri Ramakrishna said, no, you will get that experience once you have done the Divine Mother's work, that means God's work. According to Sri Ramakrishna, Narendranath was the incarnation of one of the 7 sages which are mentioned in Hinduism. And he came to help Sri Ramakrishna to preach the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna came to teach the harmony of religions, etc. So Narendra came, and then it so happened that by God's will he came to Ramakrishna and got his blessings. And eventually he came to America. And it is because of his Shraddha for his Guru, he did everything that was done in America. That's when Hinduism was made well known by anyone in America. And Sri Ramakrishna had said to Narendra, that is, by the time you will have done the Divine Mother's work, that means God's work, for which he had been sent by Sri Ramakrishna to America, then you will get back your Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And so in the Thousand Island Park in America, he was seated under a tree and then suddenly he had that Samadhi. That was an indication that his work had been done. Then Narendranath, at that time Vivekananda he had become, he went back to India and some admirers gave him money and started the Ramakrishna Order in that place called Vellore. That is the headquarters of the Ramakrishna Order. Ramakrishna Order in India is known as Ramakrishna Mission. Sometimes it is called Ramakrishna Mutt also. So all these things happened because Vivekananda had great Shraddha for his Guru. And I am sitting in his Vedanta center, which was started by Swami Vividishananda. He was sent by our order to work in San Francisco as that in charge of the San Francisco Center. But and that San Francisco Center had some followers and had some money, but then a thought would haunt Swami Vividishananda, because when he was a young monk, then his guru was Swami Brahmananda. He talked about his bashful nature. It was customary in India not to speak of one's own glory. So Vividishananda Swami would not talk about his own glory or anything, his academic success and all these things. That's why Swami Brahmananda said to him, "You need a little dash and push. You are too quiet, too gentle." And he remembered that. But once when he came to America, he remembered the words of his Guru with great Shraddha. And he thought that if he could go and start a new Vedanta center somewhere, then perhaps his Guru would be pleased. That's why he left San Francisco Center with the request to the headquarters to send some other Swami in his place. And as far as I know, Swami Ashokananda was sent. And then he went to the East Coast. Then he went to other places, some other places also, to try to start a center. But they didn't work. Eventually he came to Seattle, and there he would stay in a rented place, and in a rented hall he would go and give his teachings. And then this house where I am sitting, it was the first house bought by the Vedanta Society, founded by Swami Vividishananda. And Swami Vividishananda brought me from India. The headquarters sent someone to help him because he had been becoming old, and that's why he was sent. And I heard from the devotees who were here that Swami Vivedeshananda had said that he had seen Sri Ramakrishna walking in this building. And it is all due to his Shraddha for his Guru. I also have Shraddha for him. So whatever things he accumulated, I have kept them all. And this is the library where I am seated. All these books, most of them were acquired by Swami Vivedeshananda. He had a master's degree in philosophy. And he read many books. Most of these books belong to Swami Vivedeshananda. In those days, not many people would come. So he had time to study books. Swami Vivedeshananda. And this center, Vedanta Center, is here because of his Shraddha for his Guru. Guru is Swami Brahmananda. Shraddha means worshipful attitude. That is Shraddha. Shraddhavan lavate jnanam. That means, as the Gita says, those who have Shraddha, they acquire divine knowledge eventually. So let us have Shraddha for God, for our spiritual teachers, and then we will be surely benefited. So thank you all for your patience, patient hearing.